I wake up sad some days, sad that we let it get this way, sad that we haven't done more before. One by one, the lives are lost. One by one, we mourn their loss. One by one, we count the cost. One by one is one by one, the lives are lost. One by one, we mourn their loss. One by one, we count the cost. One by one is one by one is one too many.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jean Todt, for your time, and Graziella is also here.
Hello, Graziella.
So now, Matthew, the floor is yours.
So I'm at the disadvantage. I'm the rudest chairman in history showing up, so I haven't heard your individual contributions, so I'm not well placed. But what do you think about this radical agenda? Let me start with Jean. Is it achievable? Is it realizable? Or is it a pipe dream to go for zero in cities across the world by 2030? I'm putting you on the spot.
I mean, you know, we must be realistic. So, I mean, the world is divided by regions. So if you take Europe, you can achieve, and I mean, we have been achieving amazing results. And I was mentioning earlier in my short presentation, and we have the best in the class, and they are very close to Vision Zero. So clearly, they will improve. But I mean, we must never give anything for granted.
No.
You know, it has to be, when you wake up in the morning, you must think about it. When you go to bed in the evening, you must think. Because if you just lift the attention, believe me, you know, the numbers will increase. So always concentrate and do more. But in Europe, most of the countries have addressed the situation. Then, you know, let's go around the world. You're in Middle East. Middle East will not happen. And depending on the countries, you know, we have countries very wealthy who can do much better because they have the car, they have the road infrastructure, they don't have the education, they don't have the law enforcement, they have the post-crash care, so they have part of the thing. So we must encourage them to do better. If you go to Africa, you know, it's a carnage. There is no education, no law enforcement, no proper vehicles, no proper roads, no proper post-crash care. So here we need to put a very strong effort in Africa, speaking at the highest level. And I mean, we have started, but it will take time. So, I mean, can we say by 2030 it will be? No, it will not. But something is sure, we need to have less. Because, you know, for 100,000 population, in the best countries in Europe, it's about 2.5. In those countries, it's about 25 to 30, so between 10 to 12 times more. So, you know, if you could really achieve drop by 50%, that would be a first very important step. Then, let's go over in our traveling. Pacific, these are good countries. You know, but it's two countries, it's Australia and New Zealand. So, I mean, they are at the level of European countries. Then if we go to
We
Asia,
claim they're not quite as good, Jean, but nearly as good.
I mean, all depends. I mean, I tell you, Australia is as good as France. I'm French. Not as good as UK. You are British.
The country I used to know best.
If you go to Asia, it's divided. You have countries which are very good, like Japan, some which are quite good, like Korea. Singapore is very good, but small. But I mean, the two biggest, the two big ones. China and India, 2.7 billion population, 35% of the global population. I mean, talking about data, I mean the data which are, which are by the countries is about 100,000 victims. In fact, there are 600,000 WHO figures. So which is about 45% of the global number of fatalities around the world in 2 countries. Are we going to achieve Vision Zero? No. But again, if we can achieve to half by 2, it will be a great result. And then you go to North America, Central America, and South America. I mean, globally even, and it's surprising. I mean, US is a bad country on road safety. You know, I mean, it's they kill about 3-4 times more people average than in Europe. So they need to address it, and they can. You know, and it's something I've been discussing a lot with Ellen Chow, which is the Secretary of Transport in the US. They know, and they know exactly what to do, so they have to do it. And I'm optimistic they will do. If you go in Central America and in South America, I mean, it's bad. It's bad. They are addressing, they will address better. I was mentioning earlier that it was in another meeting that Honduras had just signed the UN Road Safety Convention. So it's starting. Okay. So that's my, sorry for the length of the answer, but I mean it's a detailed answer around the world.
Well, I mean, those of you who don't know Jean, he talks with knowledge about all these different countries because he's been there and he's raised these questions with presidents and prime ministers in each of these countries, and we all thank you for it. And the message I took from your speech yesterday about we can't just think mobility, we have to think safety as the central element of that mobility is one that we well understood and heard by those presidents and prime ministers that you've heard to. So I'm glad you're talking to them. But Graziella, back to the cities in particular and this very radical vision that FEVR have put forward. I mean, Jean is saying we need to be realistic and think about what can be achieved by 2030. What's your view coming from the European Transport Safety Council?
Thank you, Matthew. And I would like to apologize. Sorry for me being late, but I was in a parallel session organized by WHO about sustainability in city. So I was in another session and it was delayed, so that's why I just rushed in to this panel. But I just showed, like 5 minutes ago, a slide with dots showing cities around Europe that have achieved zero for 3 years in a row. It's a map made by WDoR with the help of the International Transport Forum, and it shows that Vision Zero is achievable in cities. Cities can actually be a laboratory for new measures, for ambitious, revolutionary paradigm that put pedestrians, cyclists, public transport at the top of the hierarchy of this model shift that we want to achieve.
Which cities are we talking about? Oslo? Helsinki?
Yeah, also Helsinki, but not only. It's in smaller cities as well. Of course, it might be easier for them. You have in Spain, the map shows dots all over Europe. So it's not just Nordic countries can do it. So then Central Eastern European countries can do it. We actually had a speaker from a small town in Poland that have achieved investment. And first, when I look at the picture, I said, oh, this is Sweden. And then the speaker said, no, this is my country in Poland. It's not, I'm not showing best practice, I actually have done it. So it's very inspiring to see that not just northern countries can do it, and they have been applying. So the beauty of ETSC is that we promote best practice, and other like FEVR, we promote best practice and try to have cities don't reinvent the wheel, and police is here also represented, and they're doing the same. We see that there is cities are eager to change, and they need to. So the panel we talked about, that we need to improve air quality. We need to allow our children to move around. They're stuck in cars for the moment. They don't have any freedom, and by having zero is an ambition level that we need to achieve for our children.
Okay. I would realize when I sit on this panel, a bit of modesty on my part is because I'm really sitting with three road safety gods. We have Jean, who is who's leading the fight from the front for the UN. We have the European Transport Safety Council. Those who don't know them, a wonderful body working to promote road safety in the European Union. And last but not least, we have the World Health Organization, which has really also been so fundamental in transforming the approach to road safety as well as road safety itself. So I'm going to put Nhan on the spot now. We've mentioned the US, and I'm sorry to raise this with you, but as Jean pointed out, that it's 3 times the level of casualties in the European Union. I think if the if the US were to apply to become the 28th member state of the European Union, it would be 28th out of 28. But what's your view about what's happening in the US? But also talk a bit about Africa, because we work together on the EU-Africa project, which we're very proud of. Where does the breakthrough come from in terms, again, of cities particularly?
Well, that's not at all a loaded question.
Not at all, as ever.
So the U.S. is an interesting country. I mean, I think there are a couple of issues. First of all, I just would like to say that I think I love the ambition of this vision. I love the radicalness of what's being called for. But I think that it also means that we have to radically change our approach if we're going to meet this ambition. I mean, I think what Jean has said is that if we want to achieve this type of vision, continuing the way we have is not going to lead us there. We may at best make have a reduction by half, but we're certainly not going to achieve that unless we have also to accompany that ambition a radically transformative approach to road safety. And for me, and let me answer your question about the United States in this way, I think that the challenge for us has been that we have focused too much on road safety within the existing context. And I think the American example perfectly illustrates that. The Americans actually were the pioneers at one point in road safety. It was William Haddon that actually put out the Haddon Matrix, and it was William Haddon that actually started the scientific thinking around this idea of a systems approach. Unfortunately, I think in the United States, that evolution has been dominated by the presence of automobile industries and the cars, and the focus in the United States has been so focused on car-centric mobility. And I think unless we are willing to move away from a vision of mobility that is centered around cars and personal vehicles, we're not going to make that progress. And in my humble opinion, I think that has been a big part of what the United States is suffering, is because the vision of transport and mobility is very much tied to cars and personal vehicles.
Agree.
There are, of course, some cities that have moved away from that, but I think that is a major part of it. And then just to your other part of your question is that I think that, in terms of Africa and many of these other countries, it's not reasonable to expect that we're going to replicate Amsterdam, Stockholm, or Oslo, or even cities in Poland, because the context is so different. And I think what we need to be able to do is help countries apply a vision of safety that is appropriate to those settings and that is suitable with the context and the cultural practices. Africans actually walk more than Europeans do. Yeah. We should encourage that. We shouldn't be trying to say to them, hey, make your car safer. Exactly. We should be saying, hey, you walk a lot. That's a great thing. Let's strengthen that aspect of your mobility, but we have to be thinking of that in that context. And I think that's a major issue.
I think it's a very neat way of putting it. If you look at it and think of it in terms of an imaginary curve, many African countries are at the bottom of that motorization curve and are poised to go up it. And they're poised to follow some of the same mistakes, for want of a better word, that we have made in terms of accepting the car as the dominating force in our societies. And they don't have to make that choice. And there are ways of making a much more holistic concept of safety, which is in time also in tune with sustainable mobility. Jean, I know you've got to go in a minute. Are there any urgent, burning questions for Jean? Here's your chance to grab the UN Special Envoy on road safety and tell him what you think. Or ask him a question.
Well then, unless, no?
Go ahead.
Jean, we need your help to address this gap that we see with the level of the demand for safety and sorry to say this is a big elephant in the room, but this
or is it a bull in the china shop?
No, the lobbying tactic of the car industry that is not helping us. Like we managed, thanks to the European Commission and the hard ambition level of the European Parliament and the member states to have this vehicle safety standard revised in the EU with intelligent speed assistance, direct vision being mandatory in the years to come.
With strong support from Jean, I would add, all the way, and I'm very grateful.
But we fought hard against lobbying.
We have been hosting 3 meetings with manufacturers, and I must say with poor results. I mean, the only little achievement we had was to sign an undertaking from OICA, which is international manufacturers organization, that they would put the best effort. But clearly manufacturers, they want to do their way, which is not, they are not the only one. You know, I mean, unfortunately, you have a lot of organization where I feel should be responsible. You know, let's talk about alcohol company. You know, alcohol company, I think they should be they should be the strongest contributor, you know, to help to address road safety. And sometimes, I mean, it's a kind, no, we don't want to touch to alcohol company. But for me, I'm sorry, I will come back on manufacturer. But I think they have a strong responsibility. They should be engaging in helping us. So all the big players should have a strong role to play to help us to address the thing. And I mean, incidentally, it's frustrating because here we have all the planet interested in road safety, which is represented this week, and almost no manufacturers.
No.
I think only one, maybe the local one will be here.
Oh, they were here, yes.
You know, so I mean, it just demonstrates that they want to do their own way. So it's a fight. You know, normally, I mean, honestly, I'm against the fight. I think we should always try to compromise, to have discussion, to have dialogue. But if not, then I mean, we must fight. But I mean, I do agree with you that much more could be done, mainly in developing countries.
Maybe I just ask a question here, but just on this point, do you feel as a community that we in road safety have been just a bit too polite? We've accepted a bit too much. I like what you said about being ready.
I mean, maybe not united enough.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of engagement has been done individually, but if we want to be stronger, we must be one voice.
Yeah.
So far, I think we have been many voices. There should be one strong voice.
I actually think we've been way too polite, and I think we haven't asked...
You're never very polite, if I can say.
I don't think we've asked the right questions.
Yeah.
I would go one step further than what Jean has said and say, it's not just the alcohol industry, it's all about all industries. If I were sitting with a Coca-Cola CEO right here, I would ask Mr. CEO of Coca-Cola, how many people die on the roads as a result of your value chain?
You're not going to get a job with them.
I don't plan on getting one.
Graziella.
But that's the point. They contribute to deaths on the road, and it's not just the people that are directly linked to transport that have an account that have responsibility. It's everyone that produces, that engages in transport that needs to be responsible, and we let them off the hook. We don't ask them the questions.
I fear I'm going to get the same answer from Graziella, but do you think we've been too polite?
Yes, definitely. And I was yesterday at a global NCAP event where no manufacturers were there, and they sent a letter to OICA.
So otherwise, so if we don't take also rules or implement rules on the international level, at the end, Europe will be safer, but Africa less safer.
I think that's a very important point. And Minister, can I also thank everything you've done within Luxembourg to make Luxembourg a safe city? And I know you've got the ambition, or a safe country, but I know you also in the city of Luxembourg are very keen to put Luxembourg up on that top tier of safe cities. And I'm sure that you'll be hearing from Jeannot about to being zero by 2030, I'm sure, on a daily basis. Anybody else want to jump in? How are we doing for time?
Perfect for end.
We're out of it.
Let that be the motive of the week. Perfect for end. I really want to thank everyone here for participating. I'm sorry I could only catch the end, but if the liveliness of this panel discussion is a thing to go by, it must have been a great session. See you on the circuit. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much to all of you for your participation and also for the passionate discussion. I hope that the ideas will come through very quickly, very soon. I would like to thank you, our sponsors, FEVR Foundation, UBER, and the Luxembourg Minister of Transport and Public Work. We all agree that the objective is that there are no road victims in urban areas in 2030. We don't want anyone to die or be seriously injured due to moving in the city. We all agree it's necessary to slow down, and I would like to add that it's necessary in mobility, but also in life. Stress and impatience are not good allies of road safety. The balance between productivity and quality of life must be found, and this will result in a safer mobility. Most of our trips in the city are due to the day-to-day task. Go to work, take the children to the school, go to the doctor, go to visit the family. It's unacceptable that for these ordinary issues, for just being in public space, so many people are suffering such harrowing consequences. And we know to achieve the zero goal is an objective already achievable, as some European cities already reached the goal. So we have concrete examples. And let me say that as we assume that many people will die next decade, and there is no provision for this, we must do everything to reach zero victims. We have the prescriptions for the pandemic, as Jean Todt said, and as we saw, we all agree that it's mandatory to reduce speed and default 30 kilometers or even lower in urban areas, to think urban infrastructures to move people and not cars, and think space in the city in terms of pedestrians and cyclists with fewer cars, and those cars which are there must be safe, so we can build friendly environmental cities where children can play it in again, and elderly people can move without stress. Also, change our mobility culture for a sustainable, safer and healthier style, to improve coexistence and the quality of life in cities. We want 5-star cities. And of course, last but not least, enforcement and education. So we hope all of you join the 0 by 30 campaign and present the conclusions to your own city halls. Collaboration with local and international organizations are very important to achieve the target. FEVR will continue the promotion of the 0 by 30 campaign with other victim federations and stakeholders. And as further steps, we want to reach 2030 supporters till 2030, so our demands are visible. We will deliver a certificate to the cities that achieve the 0 by 30 goal. And also we will invite to other international organizations to join us, so we can achieve quickly this objective. More things will come soon, but we will keep you informed. And as the very next step is the Vision Zero song. So thank you to all again, and now it's time for the Vision Zero song. Thank you.
You all should raise your voice. You have no other choice. The only target to go, and I want to go so well. 1, 2, Vision Zero. You all should raise your voice. You have no other choice. The only target to go, and I want to go so well. 1, 2, Vision Zero. Vision Zero.